Hello, everybody. For all of us in the FLETC community, the year 2020 was a year we will remember. That's a year we should remember. We should remember the challenges we faced as federal employees and the challenges FLETC faced as a federal institution with a mission essential function, and as well as the challenges each of us faced personally. As individuals, few of us have escaped completely unscathed and unscarred. All of us have family or friends or neighbors who have lost employment or been able to complete school. And some of us have family members that have been sickened, and some of us have ourselves become ill. Others of us have family or friends or neighbors that have been taken by the pandemic. So it's true that this year has held some hard, cold, cruel times, and I know there are still some hard times ahead. 2020, to sort of set the stage, was just the latest in a string of years of challenges, all of which we've successfully addressed, by the way. Remember, we closed 2017 and opened 2018 with Hurricanes Irma and Maria and the damage they caused. And we closed 2018 and opened 2019 with Hurricane Dorian, followed shortly, if you remember, by the longest government shutdown in history. We, that's all of us as members of this federal law enforcement training community, learned from that experience, and we can be proud we have carried those lessons with us into the future and now to 2020. This year, as we closed 2019 and we opened 2020, we faced a completely new and unexpected set of circumstances. In January of 2020, we began the year hearing the distant whispers of a possible threat of a global pandemic. And I think a lot of us expected maybe something like the old H1N1 swine flu pandemic we had back in 2009. You may remember that the swine flu lasted about 10 months total. Our experience with COVID-19, though, has proven to be something different. Within a few weeks after the year started, I guess the grinding reality of the COVID pandemic struck home, and we were forced to suspend in-person training. We found that the virus behind the pandemic, this thing called COVID-19, was so new, so exotic, that science and experience offered no lessons for us, no model, no test, no treatment, no vaccine, no protocols that we knew of. But we used what we did know as the anchor for our plans for the future. The federal law enforcement training community, that's all of us. That's FLETC and our participating organizations and DHS headquarters as well. We all understood the importance of our training mission, and we pursued it with energy, I have to say. We paused in-residence training operations only long enough to assess, plan, and then reconstitute our training operations. Our greater FLETC community began a structured and thoughtful planning effort the day after we suspended training, actually. So within a few weeks, we developed a comprehensive restart plan, and we were able to get approval for it, and we were able to restart training on June 17th. We continued to train, and we graduate an average of 410 basic officers a week, which happens to be just about enough to keep pace with the number of officers that leave federal service every week. Now, since we restarted training in June, we've had students and staff test positive. That's at Artesia, Charleston, Cheltenham, and Glencoe. But in every case, we've taken immediate action to identify the individuals, isolate, do the contact tracing, and take whatever follow-up actions are necessary. But today, in fact, we became aware of a set of positive tests at Glencoe, and we're in the process of doing what we do very well, which is taking the steps we always take to identify, isolate, contact trace, and follow up. The good news for all of us is that every day, as long as we continue to follow the rules, we grow closer to the time when we will all once again have control over the outcomes in our personal and professional lives at the level of control we're used to. Now remember though, in 2020, we're a lot more than COVID-19. We found ways to take maximum advantage of all of our resources. We organized and hosted seminars and conferences in the virtual universe. Things like our Mass Casualty Event Summit and the Cyber Conference. which, by the way, reached over 7,000 participants, which is probably, 10 times more than we would have expected to reach by more traditional methods. We use virtual platforms to increase our participation in curriculum development and the curriculum review process. And I have to say, our revitalized public affairs office was everywhere, documenting our 50th anniversary and covering our daily progress towards our FLETC vision of the future. Some of the small things, large things we did, we installed new vehicle barriers at Artesia and began construction of a new vehicle maintenance facility up there. We began construction of a new FPS building at Glencoe. We initiated actions to acquire more land for use as training space up in Cheltenham. And through a lot of efforts of a lot of people, especially the folks down there in Charleston, and we worked with the Coast Guard and the Ports Authority up there and sort of cemented our future for the foreseeable future up there in Charleston. I'm quite proud of that. Internally, our selection of Associate Director for Training, Deasy, and AD Lemons, and AD Rodini, AD Munchie, AD Harpole, and Chief of Staff Taco, all new additions this year in 2020. That increased our expertise everywhere and reinforced our connections with our major clients and customers. The National Capital Region Training Directorate and our State, Local, and Tribal Division collaborate to deliver the human trafficking awareness training, very popular with Congress and very much needed and appreciated by the state and locals. They delivered it to more than 800 state, local, and tribal law enforcement personnel in New Mexico and South Dakota and Washington State, Nebraska, New Jersey, Missouri, California, and Massachusetts. We moved in-person business meetings to the virtual universe like this meeting here today. We've all become pretty good at using the Teams app. Our training and mission readiness divisions not only invented new tools and processes to clean and renovate our firing ranges, they actually put their backs into it and did the work themselves. You gotta love it. Our physical training division led a team effort to re-engineer the main athletic training buildings here at Glencoe, the ones we've had since like 1963. And they've done a great job making superior use of both indoor space and outdoor space. In many ways, it's safe to say that 2020 was a landmark year for the federal law enforcement training centers. Our 50th anniversary year was marked by extraordinary adaptation to unprecedented circumstances. And looking back, I can say, neither are what we once were, nor are we yet all that we will become. So today, we're in the first quarter of FY 2021. And as we execute our mission essential function and pursue our strategic vision, we now face a mix of conditions we've never experienced before, at least not all together at once. Sort of an imperfect storm. We've managed through pandemics before. We've managed outbreaks before of the flu, and we've operated under continuing resolutions pretty regularly. We've continued to operate smoothly under every national election cycle since 1970 when we were formed. But we've never had the opportunity to manage all of those things at once. And so we're moving cautiously forward through this imperfect storm of events. It's likely, experts suggest, that we have a flu outbreak at the same time we're seeing COVID-19 spike nationally in various hotspots throughout the country. You may recall we have a continuing resolution that expires on December 11th, along with our budget authority. So we have a national election in less than a week. I'm sure you're aware of that. And we all know that no matter what the results of the national election, we can expect some changes in national leadership in the next 60 days. So all this is to state out loud, something you already know. We'll have to keep a steady hand on the tiller. We'll have to negotiate the obstacles to progress as they come to us and continue to execute our mission essential functions and pay attention to detail. Our plan now is to continue in the second quarter of this year with a training load about like what we did in the first quarter. But as always, when we get the chance and we get the opportunity to increase our throughput, we'll do it. The instant the opportunity presents itself, we'll be all over it. And we have every reason to be hopeful that this federal law enforcement training community will continue to explore and to innovate and in the end, excel. Now to give us some details and work through the rest of this program, I'll ask the Deputy Director, Fallon, to take the reins.
Okay, thanks, Director. And thanks, everyone, for your efforts in FY20 and for everything that we've been doing so far in FY21 to move forward. I did want to start off with some breaking news that just came up here in Glencoe, and the Director alluded to it a little bit. We're currently working several student cases that tested positive late last night. We've quarantined the positive students and are isolating the entire class. We've taken steps to isolate and test any other students that were in close contact with those students. We're working closely with the partner agency and are conducting contact tracing, as we speak to ensure we identify anyone that may have had close contact with the students, and that includes staff, contractors, everybody. We're confident in our process, especially the contact tracing process, to determine who needs to be isolated and tested. We will share more information once we have it. I just wanted to make sure that we got this out there this morning so that you know the facts and that you know that the steps that we're taking to ensure that we can contain any future positive cases. A little bit about the students. So we all know that they've been in isolation for 14 days. Some of the programs, now we're at 10 days for the ROM and for the initial isolation. We know they all have to stay on center, and we realize how hard and difficult it is for your students, for our students. But I do want to point out, though, that Student Services and the Rec Associations at all three in-residence sites have really done a fantastic job, I think, of really stepping up and making life a little bit better for the students. They have a lot of planned activities now and also coming up, knowing that the holiday season is coming up and it's going to be even more challenging or hard on the students during that time. So appreciate all the work that is being done to make the students feel a little bit better. A couple things: testing and contact tracing. So we appreciate all of you that have volunteered. Some of the agencies really have stepped up to help FLETC and provide volunteers for both testing and for contact tracing. We'd like to see if we can put a call out for more. We do need some more volunteers. So if you could just comb your staffs and see if we can get some additional people to help us with the testing of your students and the contact tracing. Contact tracing, by the way, if you haven't taken the course, it's about a 5-hour online course that really was fantastic. I took it myself, learned a lot, so that's available for you. Mask use. We have to kind of make sure that we keep our guard up. Cases are up around the country. We need to continue to do our part. We take tremendous measures to keep our student population clean and to make sure that all of our centers are safe. So let's make sure that we continue to wear our masks. We're going to put something out just as a reminder and probably do some additional inspections here in the coming weeks. We've talked a little bit about the success of our plan so far and our reconstitution efforts. We all know we started back in mid-June. The initial 14-day isolation and the single room, single bath worked out good. So we measured that over the course of about 2 months. Now that we've increased the number of rooms available on center with students sharing bathrooms and also reduced that 10-day isolation period, we're just into the first month of that. So we want to watch that this month, next month, and maybe into December, and just measure the success there before we take any additional steps to increase capacity. The director mentioned quarter two and the fact that quarter two is going to look a lot like quarter one. We still have that focus on level one. We know that many of you have those backlogs. We know it. We get it. We understand that during those 10 weeks that we were down, you guys continued to hire. Now we see agencies that are continuing to hired throughout the summer and are actually stashing the agents and officers and deputies back in their district offices. So we know you have them out there. It's actually a good thing, so that when your class does open up, you are able to fill those seats without having any issues there. But we're going to continue to focus on those level one courses. We want to make sure that we get all of your new people that you've hired out in the street and be able to perform your mission. And then actually we have looked at other classes as well. So some of those traditional level 1 classes, we know that there's other classes that you have that you need here to take at one of our sites, and we need to deliver to make sure that your agents and officers and your law enforcement staff can actually be able to perform their mission. So we have included some of those classes as well. And AD Ariana Rodina is going to talk to that a little bit more in a minute. We are also, just some good news, actually, the Bureau of Prisons is coming back. And so they are actually taking advantage of the 10-day isolation period to conduct virtual training. So at least half of those 10 days, they're going to carve out a week of their 3-week program to be able to deliver to their students while they're in isolation. If you don't know, BOP is a huge agency. There's about 40,000 people, maybe just under, nationwide. But everybody goes through that 3-week program that they have here, the 3-week basic program. Every corrections officer, every counselor, every accountant, every nurse, they all go through it. So we're happy to have BOP back, and we really are pretty happy with their ability to kind of adapt and make that isolation period work for them and bring that program back. Lastly, I just want to talk a little bit about the DHS vaccination work group that's out there. FLETC's there. We have a seat at the table. We are working hard to make sure that once a vaccine becomes available, that we get we get on that priority list. We don't have any details, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that we were actively engaged within DHS. For all of you outside of DHS, we just encourage you to do the same. So within your agencies or your departments, just do what you can to make sure that your students and your staff are included in that priority list if and when the vaccine becomes available. So I just want to thank everybody again for your partnership and your collaboration during these challenging times. It's been tough, but together we'll get through it. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Associate Director for Training, Rick Deasy. Rick?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Director Fallon. Good morning, colleagues. On behalf of Training Operations, I want to thank you, our participating organizations, your leaders, your agency reps, and your detailees here at FLETC. Had a great year of collaboration, but we could not have gotten back to training and where we're at today without your help. So we're gonna continue with our weekly calls, our PO calls with you. We moved those from quarterly to weekly on Mondays. Steve Bialis will continue that dialogue with you. I encourage your continued participation and messages. We answered over 850 of your requests for information over the last 6 months, double of what we received 6 months prior. So let's keep that up in that dialogue, making sure that you get the responses to your questions. I'd also like to thank all of you for your participation in this year's annual PO survey. We had a 97% response rate, and we're addressing those issues. I've been informed by the CFO in a first that we received 100% of your interagency agreements returned timely for FY21. So thank you for that. We started key leader engagements with your agency heads and reps here at Glencoe to address your survey concerns and your responses specifically. Since September, we've met with ATF, BOP, CBP Marine Operations, Coast Guard CGIS, USCIS, USDA, OIG Academy, U.S. Marshal Service, NCIS, TSA, and the U.S. Forest Service. Please take us up on this invitation to come in and talk about your training in 21, and we'll specifically talk about those comments that you had in the survey to make sure we're responsive to those. We've also created a forum under the steward of Assistant Director Darren Cruzana, National Capital Region, with our executives training. A unique forum for training executives to share thoughts and ideas to ensure that we're responsive to your executive needs for your agencies also. So that's available, and you'll see continued communication put out in that network. That is your network. Please utilize it, and we're happy to connect anyone that needs those points of contact. I also would like to thank the DEA Academy and the FBI Academy for hosting FLETC this past July to sit down and share our COVID thoughts regarding reconstitution of training. It was very informative. So thank you, Assistant Director Renee McDermott and Special Agent in Charge Mike Babuti for hosting FLETC. We were able to not only connect with our baseline training, but to validate many of our procedures. So thank you very much for that. We also had a chance to visit with Coast Guard headquarters, talk about maritime training standards, and to share some thoughts going forward on an MOU between federal, state, and local to increase training standards in the maritime environment. And just a couple thoughts on the what we started a PO collaboration tool specifically designed for UPOs, leveraging our FLETC learning environment. That space has been pretty beneficial. We rolled it out in October 13. Feedback's been fabulous. Over 234 users already. We've had working groups in there regarding lasers, social media and law enforcement, instructor certification. So continue to use that form. That's designed for you to have your own space. We'll continue to share our FLETC-centric messages through that form so you can stay informed. Some of the work that TMO has been doing in that virtual space, collaborating with all our directorates to deliver training in a virtual space. Director talked about our cyber conference. We also had a counterterrorism division put on protective service operations. First time we've done that in the virtual space. International training division collaborating with the ILEAs to deliver leadership and crisis training. State and local, delivering today, later on today, Assistant Chief Herjak from Seattle PD talking about leading in crisis. And IOD will be rolling out fraud talks and cyber, doing tech talks over the next couple months. We are developing BSD over in TTO is developing critical communication skills instructor training program. So look for that. And over in CTO, great work that they have done with your POs to look at our integrated use of force series. So we appreciate the PO engagement there to look at basic tactics, instructor training. The director mentioned use of force, curriculum review, working group, all of this with you and your POs involved. So thank you very much. We also would like to mention we are dropping in new technology for you. Our judgment pistol shooting technology has all been replaced here at FLETC and moving towards force application simulation training and our new Virtua technology for our POs. And then lastly, I'll just mention reiterate and that very much appreciate your assistance in keeping the students safe. So just a reminder about the assistance on protocols, C19 protocols, face masking, and social distancing and sanitation. So thank you very much. With that, I'll turn it over to Assistant Director Ariana Rodini to hit some of the highlights here for second quarter training. Thank you. Ariana?
Thank you, ADT. As was mentioned earlier, I'll be providing a scheduling update for all of you joining us this morning. So good morning to all. As the director and the deputy previously mentioned, for quarter one, we remain committed to the delivery of as much level 1 training as we're able to schedule. Programs which began during fiscal year 20 will remain on a 6-day training week until graduation for those that are already scheduled a 6-day work week. For those classes which are beginning in fiscal year 2021, the training schedule did return to a 5-day work week. So for those classes that began after October 1 of 2020, the training schedule returned to a 5-day work week. To reiterate, level 1 training is training that prepares federal law enforcement personnel to perform the essential tasks for the position into which they were hired or for essential tasks associated with new duties to which they've been assigned. And this training remains FLETC's top priority mission essential function and will be the training which we will continue to schedule. We've asked the participating organizations to review a list of programs recommended for cancellation for second quarter and to provide in writing if a program is now deemed a level 1. We recognize that for many of you, there are programs that need to be added to the schedule or remain on the schedule in order to address either a skill or training gap that may have been caused by either FLETC or agency suspension of certain programs. As you know, when we developed the master schedule for fiscal year 2021, particularly for second quarter, there were 611 classes scheduled to begin for quarter 2 of 2021. The list we've put together recommending cancellations include almost 266 classes for consideration. That list was sent out last week by Deasy Sean Beltramo of our Training Resources and Coordination Division. And as a reminder, all written requests for consideration to keep a class on the schedule, the deadline is COB today to get that in writing to Sean Beltramo and his group. Through the end of at least the second quarter of fiscal year 2021, all students will continue to adhere to the 10-day observation period prior to the start of training. All students will continue to be lodged and will be asked to remain on center for the duration of their training. And as the director mentioned, FLETC continues to discuss options with the DHS medical team to identify ways to increase throughput. We look at leveraging all training delivery points to deliver programs and to ensure that we're able to schedule certain programs, particularly those programs that are in need, instructor training programs and some of the refresher training programs. Export programs will be placed on the schedule on a case-by-case basis, taking into account the COVID mitigation factors of a location for training delivery, and we are approving those. Those will be approved at the Associate Director of Training and the Deputy Director level. The goal will be to start publishing quarter 2 schedule next week, so beginning November 2nd of 2020, we will begin scheduling the second quarter of 2021. You'll note some start time, some training date starts will shift slightly. So those classes that were scheduled to begin in early January, we will push them slightly for a few days to ensure personnel are not traveling during the holiday time. We plan on doing a similar exercise to plan for quarter 3 as conditions related to COVID are constantly changing. So at the start of the second quarter, we will look to make decisions related to quarter 3 training, and we'll plan to schedule quarter 3 no later than the end of January. Now, there's a lot of questions related to some of the financial implications, and so for that, I now would like to introduce our Chief Financial Officer, Don Lewis.
Thank you, AD Rodini. I appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. So I'd like to talk to you very briefly, because I don't want to stand between you and lunch, about FLETC's funding model, about the schedule changes potentially for quarter 2, and then what that means for funding. So I think most of you know that for basic training, FLETC and the POs have a shared funding model. So for FLETC, that funding includes all the tuition for the basic training classes and courses, the training support costs, which we formerly called miscellaneous costs, and half the instructors. And for the POs, that funding includes the food, the lodging, and the other half the instructors. So the changes that AD Rodini talked about for first quarter, we had planned on first quarter being the way it currently is. For second quarter, we had hoped to be running at a more robust level. That is not going to happen. But the statements of intent and the documents that we had sent out to you had planned on that. So what those changes mean is that we're going to recalculate for the second quarter realities. And so how that affects you is for the tuition's based on consumption. So that rate has been calculated, and those are set for those classes. For the food, lodging, and training support rates, those are based on throughput. And those changes will change that throughput. They will also change potentially the instructor requirements that we all the statements of intent and the IAAs all contemplated. So going forward, I can tell you that the rates that you're most concerned about, the meals and lodging rates, should not be, and I don't anticipate them being any worse than they were in the fourth quarter of FY20, which means meals should still be around $22.34 a day, and lodging should still be around $59.99 a day. That they won't be any worse than that. Hopefully, based on the calculations that we're able to do over the next day or two, once we get the schedule somewhat set, those will even be a little bit less than that. So Once we have that approved schedule, we make those calculations. We'll set those rates for 6 months. So from October through March, those rates will be set. As AD Rodini mentioned, in second quarter, probably midway through second quarter, we'll start reassessing and looking at where we are with respect to COVID and how it's going to affect throughput, at least for third quarter and possibly for the remainder of the fiscal year. We'll be looking at that, hopefully go back and reassess those rates then based on what we know at that time and be able to adjust the rates and hopefully to adjust them downward again to get those rates down for you. As I mentioned, the statements of intent and the IAAs, those statements of intent will be back working with you on the affected agencies with respect to any instructor requirements that change as a result of the recalculation for second quarter. And then on the IAAs where there's a funding change as a result of that, we'll work with you on that also. And our FLETC budget personnel will reach out individually to each agency that's affected and work with your folks to calculate those and get those out to you as quickly as we can. As soon as we get that schedule set, we'll be working with you on that. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to FLETC Director Walters for any closing remarks. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. I want to thank everybody that participated in the call today. Add this to your schedule. And I want to thank all our speakers today. Everybody worked really hard to make sure they got it right, and we're giving you the most up-to-date information that we have. I want to thank our Public Affairs and Office and the Chief Information Officer for making this gathering possible. I think we're getting pretty good at this Teams meeting thing. Thanks for everybody participating, and just last couple of words here. Let's continue to do great things together. And remember, there's always more to come.